Hello everyone, this is Allegedly Caleb, and I am very excited to bring to you a brand new Hex Encounter war game called War in Spain, 1936 to 1939. Now this is a brand new war game by Matrix Games featuring a brand new game engine called the Land Sea Air engine. It's inspired by War in the Pacific. Gameplay and realism are improved by a new AI known as a true AI. It does not just use scripts. This is an actual AI that writes its own scripts and will come up with its own strategies. Versus other games like WDS, there is some AI, but mostly it's scripts. So that's one brand new thing about this game series. Another thing about this new game series is the logistical system. This system is going to be just as detailed as the logistical system in War in the Pacific, but more for land-based combat, because most of this game will be based on land and in the air. In addition, this game has a hyper-detailed order of battle, probably the most detailed and historically accurate order of battle for any War in Spain game. It goes down to battalion and even company level. And then finally, the map is absolutely gorgeous. And we'll be taking a look at all of the scenarios in this game. There's not a ton, but there is a lot of hours of gameplay. So, first of all, how do you play this game? You can either play as the Republicans or the Nationalists. Now, what are those? If you don't know much about the war in Spain, the civil war that happened during this time period, essentially it arose from these deep-seated tensions that took place in Spain leading up to 1936. So the Second Spanish Republic was founded in 1931 after the monarchy was disbanded, and then different reforms and aims of modernity led to significant unrest in the country. Finally, the powder keg exploded, so to say, when the assassination of a right-wing politician, Jose Calvo Sotelo, in July 1936 triggered a military uprising against the Republican government. This Republican government was supported by a coalition of leftist parties, not leftist, and well, I guess it's a little similar to the United States. Socialists, anarchists, and communists. So not quite the same meaning as if you're coming from the US. Those were the primary parties in this Republican government. The socialists, the anarchists, and the communists. So, the main factions you'll see in this game are the Republicans, which is the government, and they comprise of socialists, anarchists, and communists. Eventually they'll split into two countries, the Republic of the North, and then I think it's just the Republicans. And then the second group is the Nationalists, led by General Francisco Franco. This faction included conservative elements, monarchists, and fascists. And as you probably know if you're watching this video, they received support from Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. Whereas the Republican government received support from communist Soviet Union. So overall, that is the general scenario that you're going to be playing through in this game. Now, back to what we were saying before. You can either play against the Republican AI as the Nationalists. You could play as the Nationalists against the Republican AI. You could play head-to-head, which is on the same computer. You're playing both sides. Or you can play by email, where you play another opponent. So let's go ahead and take a look. Here are all the different scenarios. You've got the main campaign, which is a very large campaign from 1936 to 1935, although you could win or lose before that. And then you've got the historical context. So I'll scroll down. You can feel free to pause the video and read it if you'd like. The main campaign, you'll start with tiny units. In the first 2 weeks, you'll see that the Spanish army units won't really move. They'll get disbanded. So most of your units will be militias. Then you've got your goals. And then you have a bunch of different scenarios. Zaragoza o Muerte, Saragossa or Death. Then it gives you Republicans versus AI recommended. And then it tells you a little bit about the units, goals, and historical context. Then you have Battle of Republic de Norte, 1937. This is, I believe, when Franco assaulted towards the northern area of Spain. So here's a little bit about that. Number 4, for some reason there's nothing there. I'm not sure why. But then you have number 5, the Balearic Islands. Number 6, Balearic Islands, the long scenario. So you can see this is February to October, whereas the first one is just April to June, I believe. And then you have a tutorial, which is just about 2 months long. And just for your reference point, each turn in this game, it is customizable. You can customize it to be hour-long turns, which would take forever. You'd have thousands and thousands of turns to play. You could customize it to day-long turns, which again, thousands of turns. It is how the game starts, though. If you play the game without touching any of the settings, it'll be set to day-long turns. And then 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, weeks, so on. Then you have a couple more scenarios. This one is only a... Oh, you know what? I might have been reading those dates wrong. I'm an American, or I'm from the United States, so I read day, month, year. But this is month, day, year. Anyway, this one's only 9 days long. Battle of Madrid. And then the long Battle of Madrid. So let's start out looking at the campaign. Here we are. Let's close this. LCU, that stands for Land Combat Units. This is essentially a list of all the units you have available, and then you can do various things within that list. I usually just close it first thing first. So here we are. Okay, so here is the map, and look how gorgeous this map is. Oh my goodness, it is so beautiful. Let's take a look at the main overview map. This is the strategic map. So let's show, I'm this purple color, the enemy are this yellow color. So you can see how the game starts. For the most part, the Republicans have this whole area of Spain, the southern, and then a little bit in that northern area, southern, eastern, and a little bit of northern, whereas the nationalists have everything else, including most of their strength, I believe, will start in this North African area. So that's a strategic overview of the map. Now let's zoom in here. So here is Madrid. This is where the most fighting will take place right away. And you can see the little unit icons. And there are a couple of different, how would you put it? There are a couple different user interfaces that you can use on the map. So let's see if I remember which hotkeys they are. You have Shift W, which brings up a hotkey that will show you the territory that each side controls, and then all the units that are in each hex. So for example, you can see over here, actually that's an enemy unit. You can see right here, we have this Guadalajara Agrupación de Mil, AV or assault value 4, There are 339 men and 0 armored fighting vehicles in that hex. But there's 1 vehicle and 0 guns. Let's click it. Now you have the actual units. This will show you everything that is in that unit. So 47 out of 56, that means there's 47 units, you could say, or groups, squads, guns, that sort of thing, out of 56, which 56 belong here. So it's not a fully kitted out unit. Now its orders are to defend. That's 32 experience, morale 82, disruption 25, fatigue 25. It has plenty of supplies and ammo, 59 out of 14, 13 out of 1. And then you can see the different squad types. Has a bunch of village volunteer squads, some student militia, women's militia, Guardia civil squads, and even an HMG team, and then some support squads and logistical units. So that is an example of what you'll find in a hex. Now, the number that's above it, that shows how many units are in that hex. So here you'll see 2 units. Or maybe, oh, I see. So if it's, where's a hex of mine that has multiple units of mine? Anyway, well, that's not, the point of this video is not to teach you how to play the game. It's just to show you the game. We can actually do some tutorials later. Another key important part about this window that we're looking at right now, these white-ish looking hexes, those are hexes that we control. These red looking hexes, they're shaded red, are hexes that the enemy controls. And then finally you'll see some gray hexes in between. Those are neutral hexes. Supply can go through these white hexes, cannot go through red hexes or these gray hexes. So just keep that in mind when you're planning your supply. So you can see there's tons of units everywhere. Here's Barcelona. Now let's turn off that. There we go. Oops. Uh-oh. What did I do here? Here, give me 1 second. Okay, so we're back. Sorry, I accidentally pressed a hotkey that messed up the whole window. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So you have your different hex control, which red is the enemy and green is friendly. And then in addition to that, you also have this hex zone of control. So again, red is controlled by the enemy, not green. I guess this would be, I don't know, whatever this color is. I don't really know how to say that color. Gray, maybe? Anyway, that is friendly controlled. So in addition to infantry units, which you have all sorts of units here, you can also manage the Air Force. So let's see if we can find a, yeah, here we go. Some Air Force units that we can manage. We've got these guys. Let's see where they are. Go back. I don't know how to see where they are on the map, but here's a bunch of information about them. You can see the types of planes they're flying, a whole bunch of information about the planes, and then more information about the people who fly the planes. So you can see even this guy has a bunch of stats that you can track. So this game models each individual aircraft and each individual pilot, and when a pilot dies, he will die in the game. If he's shot down, sometimes they can survive, but that is all stuff that's managed in this game. In addition to that, you also have to manage your ships. So you can see there are a bunch of different ships that you have to manage. For example, you have an aircraft carrier right here, the Libertad. And here are all of the airplanes that are on it. So a whole bunch of different ships that you also have to manage. Here it is. It says it's a light cruiser, but I thought CL... Oh, no. CL is light cruiser. I was kind of surprised thinking that Spain had aircraft carriers at this point. I was like, I didn't realize how strong their navy is. That's really funny. Anyway. So that's why this game engine is the land, air, and sea game engine, because you control all three of those things. Now, the sea portion of this game won't be nearly as big as in some, or as much to manage as in War in the Pacific, but it is important because you will need to manage the supply coming into your area of the country from your allies. For example, the Soviets will be sending a lot of equipment along with manpower and all sorts of things to help the Republican Spain, while Germany and Italy are going to be doing the same thing for nationalist Spain. So you'll want to make sure you keep your ports open, keep that supply, ammunition, those weapons, even some expeditionary units coming into port so that you can keep the fight going. So, what else do we want to go over while we are here? Let's take a look at some of the different buttons on the UI. And actually, one that's really important here is the overview report for your nation. This is the report you're going to want to look at each turn. Down here is the loss of life value. If this goes too high, then you will lose the game. You can potentially, your nation will want to surrender. In addition, here's how many bases you have and how many bases your enemy has, and then their value. So right now, pardon me, Nationalist Spain has over 450 bases, whereas Republican Spain has 680 bases. Nationalist Spain has 1 ship sunk, Republican Spain has 21 ships sunk, and then the victory point value between those, and then air losses. Neither side has lost any air yet. In addition, here are some of the other nations that will get involved. You have Germany, the USSR, Italy, then Nationalist Spain, and the Republic of the North. So, what else would we like to look at here? Here's all of the land combat units in our control, all of their supplies, everything we need to know about them, their locations, their defense, or their combat orders, and their target. Replacements, end means no. Whole bunch of stuff. So one of the neat things about this game, like I was mentioning at the beginning, is most of your units are going to start off as these small little militia units. You're not going to have really many divisions or anything like that. It's going to be all these little militias with, volunteers fighting each other. And as the game progresses, you're going to be upgrading these units and turning them into more professional forces. Another thing about this game that I think is really cool is it's kind of like a hybrid between a World War I and a World War II game. In this game, you don't have a ton of maneuver forces. You can see there are some tank units on the map. For example, right in here, you can see a tank unit, some FT-17s. These are controlled by the Republican Army. There will be some units like that, and some units, here's some more. These are some armored cars. So there will be some units like that, but for the most part, most of your units are infantry. And with the way that this game is set up with limited supplies, this is how it was historically. Because you have limited supplies and the terrain in Spain is so mountainous in so many places, you're going to have a lot of what you could see as slow trench warfare mixed with high destructibility weapons, modern weapons for this period. So you're going to have a mix of stuff like biplanes going against each other alongside more modern aircraft like the German Focke-Wulfs. The early versions of those will be here. You'll have all of these different ships and tanks facing each other. It's really going to be interesting. So, and as you can see, they did not just model Spain, they modeled the rest of this map as well. You've got North Africa right here. This would make a really good Operation Torch map already. They could just straight up make that right now because you have everything you need right here. Just stick in the Vichy France forces and you'll be ready. Then you have Palmyra, which is controlled by Spain. It's split into it's split in between nationalist and Republican Spain. And then you have some portions of southern France. And actually quite a lot of France is covered in this game. And you even have Switzerland over here. In addition, you have a little bit of western Italy. And then you have all these little ports over here that are going to be shipping supplies to you. So I can't show it here. Well, I can't show you what's in there because it's controlled by Italy. But eventually, once they get more involved in the war, they're going to start sending material to nationalist Spain. And of course, Republican Spain is going to want to try to counter that with their ships and aircraft. So that's all very interesting. And then finally, supply. So supply in this game is modeled very realistically. You're going to be using all these little bases that have storage. And what are they storing? Let's take a look. They're going to be storing something called supply, which are just general supplies for, I believe, units. So that could be food, that could be ammunition, stuff like that. Then you've got fuel. Fuel is important, obviously, for aircraft, for trucks, and for armored vehicles in general. And then coal. Now, coal, I'm not 100% sure what that is used for, other than maybe some older ships. Maybe for trains. That could be what that's for. And potentially for industry. That could be what that's for as well. So those are your main resources in this game. You'll have all of these different areas that create resources, such as here you've got 13 light industry, and they create, I believe, light industry. No, I forget what that makes. But all of these things create different resources, so to say. So what about this place? This place has 9 manpower, 17 light industry. They've got a train depot and a resource center. What about Madrid? What does a big city like Madrid produce? Madrid has 372 manpower, 325 light industry, 0 refinery, 0 coal, 110 train depot, 71 resource center. And then you can see the stockpile of all those different resources. Then when you click on a unit, you can see, let's click one of our units. This is clicking on the base, so you can see the logistics network, the different things that are required and what are stockpiled in that area. Now let's click that actual unit. Oh, that's an enemy unit. Let's click a friendly unit. I keep thinking I'm Republican Spain here, but no, I am Nationalist Spain. Maybe I am Republican Spain. I forget. Here's some guys. These are ours. So you can see here, they need, where is it? Here it is. Supplies. That's primarily what they need. So they have 25 supplies a day, or 25, and they can hold, maybe not hold, but to be fully supplied, they would need 11 supplies. Same thing with ammunition. So I definitely want to dig in more into how the supply system in this game works. I'm still going through the manual, but it seems pretty complicated, but not overly complicated. So anyway, that is this game. You also have these combat reports that you get to read after units fight, where you'll see how many losses they took and learn some stuff about the battles. Now let's go back to the menu. Click here, go to main menu. Let's take a look at some of the other scenarios really quick. Here's that Zaragoza or Death campaign. Okay, so it restricts you to the area that you're allowed to look at. So let's see. Let's turn on the unit interface. You can see here's a bunch of units, and now you have a much more developed group of units. And here you got a bunch of infantry units. You've got a supply unit. You've got an MG unit. Got a cav unit right here. Cavalry, I should say. You've got a couple of ships. I guess that's not ships. That's port defense, I believe. You got some mountaineer units over here. And I believe in this scenario, you're trying to defend against the nationalists. Okay, so this is a small little bite-sized scenario that you can use to learn the game. After I show you these scenarios, I will tell you some of the feedback I've been hearing from the community and some of my own feedback. Okay, here's another one. So you can see this red bar, that shows the map. Green are ours, or no, red are ours, green are the enemy. So you can see that trench warfare here. The lines are pretty static. There are a couple of units, some armored wagons. You'll see there's actually a bunch of interesting armored units, homegrown armored vehicles that are in this game. Stuff that is the kind of thing you'd see in a civil war, I guess you could say. Here's another armored wagon. I think these are armored trains. Here's an actual armored unit. So FT-17s, 5, and then 5 T-26s. Interesting. Oh, are those Samoas? Like the French tanks? Okay, FT-17s. can't tell. Oh, no, these aren't. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is. There's no picture of it, unfortunately. So there is a tiny amount of armor in these battles. I wonder if we'll see... We did see some Italian units over here. I don't see any German units. That's part of the Italian Expeditionary Force. Here's some Italian Air Force. Oh, here's some Germans. Which looks like some... I can't tell. Is that logistics? That might be a German logistics unit. I think that's special forces. Okay. So instead of hundreds of panzers, you're dealing with tens of panzers at the most. Anyway, let's look at another scenario. Balearic Islands. Oh, and what we looked at, that was Republic of the North. That little area up there. Anyway, the Balearic Islands. Oh, looks like the game just crashed. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. That was my first crash of this video. Anyway, here we go. We can see some units. This one, I think, is going to be really good for teaching you how to conduct like naval invasions and how to control ships. It's a little tiny scenario. Then you've got the tutorial, which is right here. It's basically a smaller version of what we were doing, I think, of the previous one. And then let's see what this one is. Okay. Ooh. This is a small one. Lots of units. Here's an... Yeah, some bombers. Interesting. I wonder what the difference between these like dark icons and the light icons are on those nationalist Spain units. Oh yeah, and like here's a blue icon. Why are you blue? Don't know. Look how many more units there are in this unit though. Oh, there are some tanks down here. Interesting. Let's see what these actually encompass. Oh, some BA-6s. Those are Soviets. FAIs. That must be some sort of Spanish vehicle. Okay, and then over here you have some T-26 M33s. A little over 20. T-26 M33s further down times 32 of them? Damn. Okay. It's a lot of units. So that was these guys, 222. Oh, that's how much combat power they have. Yeah, those guys hit heavy. Any others? Ooh, this one has even more. Let's see what's in this unit. 359. More T-26s. They're pretty much the same type of unit. Okay. Any other interesting units? Not that I can see. Looks like they're going for Valencia, maybe? They're looking to cut this whole area off from the rest of Spain. Well, I don't see any other nationalities here. Let's quit. So that was this one. Now let's see, Battle of Madrid. What's this gonna look like? Okay. Wow. So you've got nationalist units basically surrounding Madrid. You've even got some German Air Force. Probably with some Focke-Wulfs. Let's look. Oh, I can't because I'm not there. I'm not them. Okay. And then you have your nationalists. Cannot see any other interesting units though. This is a small scenario though. Hopefully pretty easy to learn. These are the types of scenarios you should learn how to do stuff like logistics and air combat in, because that is extremely important in this game. Now let's look at that last scenario. Here's the much longer version. Okay. A little bit of an expanded map. Okay. All right. So that is all of these scenarios. Now let's go back into the main campaign, just so you can have something to look at. And let's review our thoughts so far. So, pluses, I think, are the historical accuracy. I think that's something that is really cool to see, including one of my favorite things is being able to click on a unit and see, like, okay, what is in that unit. You can see all the different types of squads that make up a unit. You can even click into them and see like what weapons those squads have. So cool. I really love that games that do that. Other games that do that are I'm thinking actually other games by Matrix, war games. So games like War in the Pacific Admirals Edition, Gary Grigsby's War in the East 1 and 2. And then you have another game, I think it's also Matrix games, the Operational Art of War 4. All of those games will simulate down to individual tanks, individual squads. And I love that. I love that. It really brings a lot of immersiveness to the game. Another thing that I really like is how flexible your order of battle is. What I mean by that is you'll always start out with the same units, but where you decide to expand your military and upgrade your units and where you decide to send your different units on the map, that's all up to you. So I think that part's really cool. And that's an interesting about this Civil War title you're not going to get in a normal, like, say, Eastern Front, German versus Soviet game. Because there, all those units have been made already. Maybe with the exception of, say, a War in the East 2 game where you're the Soviets and you're constantly making new units. Maybe with the exception of that, you're pretty much settled into your order of battle already. I'm thinking games like Panzer campaigns where you have your very detailed orders of battle, but you're not going to be adding units to that. You have what you have, and if you lose a unit, then you lose it. So I like that as well. Another thing I like about this game is it is gorgeous. The map is gorgeous. You can tell that they put their heart and soul into making this Spanish peninsula. And it is a gorgeous map to look at. Graphics are very important to me in these types of games. And while a lot of parts, I'll get into that when I start getting into the things I wish were better about this game. But graphics are important to me, and I really like this type of artistry in war games. Um, it really helps with the immersion. But another thing that I like is and this kind of goes back to my first point, is how detailed the game is when it comes to managing your air force and managing your ships. I think that part is also really interesting, especially for people who are really interested in air combat. I don't know a ton about air combat, so I think that part of this game will be a hill for me to climb, but it's definitely a hill I'm looking forward to hiking. Finally, one of the last things I wouldn't say the last thing, but one of the final things I want to mention that I really like about this game is the logistics system. It seems like a system that will take a lot of work to set up on your first turn, but it makes sense and it adds a whole different layer of strategy to this game. It's not just about pushing counters and figuring out where to attack next. It's also about looking at what rail hexes you'll need to open up to move supply from one end of the map to the other, or what city should you try to get next, because that city might have a massive train depot that'll boost your like train network across one area of the battlefield, like things like that make, or one other area, figuring out how to secure your port that is one of the only ports where your allies from outside of Spain are bringing in all of this supply and all of these new units. Like things like that you don't really see in a lot of other hex and counter games, because you might have a certain amount of supply points based in a hex, like things like that, instead of generating supply in cities. That supply then gets sent out by trucks and trains to your units. You don't really see that too much in hex and counter games. So that's something I think I can really get immersed in with this game. Now, what about this game do I think could be better? The very first thing, and I know we're all thinking it, I've seen this across a lot of different forums, in the wargaming Discord that I'm in, and that is the UI, or the user interface. The user interface, I'm just going to say it, it's not good. The user interface is not good. I hate that when you're going around the map, like literally when you hover over a unit, you just have this black box with white text, and that tells you what you need to know about that unit. It's not pretty, and it's so big. Like, look at that. If I say need to look at this unit up here, and I'm scrolling across the map, suddenly I've got this black box. Like, look at this big one. I've got this giant ass, pardon my French, this giant black box just covering up half of my screen. Stuff like that is not very nice. And then if I click on a hex, look at this. I have to I get that there's a lot of information in this game, but the way you have to hover over all of these different things to see what they do, I kind of like it when they do that, but then again, there's that black box. Make it look nice, guys. It's not, I feel like it isn't too hard to figure out how to make something like that look nice. Also, all of the different hotkeys that you have to use to, well, actually, no, even before that, the hotkeys you can live with, but with a map mode like this, I want to see more distinction between areas that I control and then areas that the enemy controls, because frankly, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, especially when you get into areas that have these woods or mountains. When you're in the plains, it's a lot easier to tell. But then when you get into areas like this, like I can't. It's hard to tell where my side ends, my zone of control ends, and where theirs begins. So I would like to see a little bit more of a color difference there. And then what else could I say? How about, can I bring this thing up? Let me see. I mean, I think this whole thing up here, I mean, it does what it's designed to do, but again, it could look nicer. But one thing I never mentioned, there's weather in this game. Weather forecasts. Where is it? That's another thing, is a lot of the stuff in this game, like a lot of the different buttons you have to click to see certain things, it's not very intuitive. You basically, and I know you should read the manual when it comes to these types of games, but I've literally had to print out a sheet to show me, all right, how do I see the hexes that I control? Like, that should be something I can easily either click to turn on, or it shouldn't be some fancy hotkey. Anyway, I forget what I was saying before that. Now I can't even turn back what I was looking at earlier. And that's part of what I'm talking about, is there should be buttons for some of this stuff. I know hotkeys are a lot of people's friends, but stuff that you're going to use all the time, like that unit format, I don't know what to call it, the way that it showed all the different units that were on the map, that should be something that you can easily press, and boom, there it is. There it goes. I finally got it back. So anyway, I don't mean to hark, and again, I really think this is a cool game. I don't mean to, if you're a developer and watching this, or you've worked on the game, I'm not trying to belittle your work or anything. I just think there are some quality of life improvements that can be made to this game, or even this game engine. Let's see, some other things. I think those are my main issues right now with the UI. One of my other issues that I found are, and that I've heard about a lot, there are a lot of bugs still. I ran into a bug while I was recording this. I can send a bug report to the developers. And I understand that the game did just come out, but and I haven't seen these, but I've heard about some bugs that have been game-ending bugs. Bugs that people will have that will make the game unplayable. And they'll be a little bit into the campaign. And when you can always save the game, and you should save your game. So if you run into something like that, your entire game isn't ruined. But in the case where someone doesn't do that, they've, say, set up their start for 3 hours, and then something happens. Either the game crashes, or they run into a bug and they have to restart it, and then you have to redo all of that work. It's a little bit frustrating. So I would like to see some of these types of bugs fixed. Maybe some of them should have been fixed before the game was released. Although personally, I do kind of like having access to it, even if it's not fully polished yet. I prefer, that way I can at least learn it and get used to it before updates come out. But like I was saying, some of those bugs, and then some of the crashes, you saw earlier I had a crash during this video. Some stuff like that should be fixed, because that shouldn't be very common. Now those are all of the, I guess you could say, negative things I have to say about the game right now. The fact that it's on 32-bit, I don't really care about that much. I mean, honestly, a lot of the wargamers who are in the wargaming community don't necessarily have the newest top of the line computers, and these types of games should be accessible to them still, especially considering that they're a huge part of this community. So I'm fine with that. 32-bit runs perfectly fine on my more modern PC. What else? No, I think that's it. Well, if you want to see a let's play of this game on my channel, definitely let me know. Leave that in the comments. I would love to play through a smaller scenario once I've gotten the hang of the game. There is no way I am putting that on YouTube right now because I would not have a clue what I'm doing. But yeah, otherwise, thank you for watching. I hope you're excited about this just like I am. And yeah, for anyone from Spain, I know that the Spanish Civil War is still a bit of, I don't want to put this lightly either. It's a very touchy subject. There are still people around today who lived through it. Lots of families lost their loved ones during the Civil War. And actually, an interesting fact I learned, way more people died behind the front lines during the Civil War than died in the fighting. And that's not just like bombings and stuff like that. This was the environment during the Spanish Civil War. Neighbors were going out and stringing up their neighbors, thinking that they were for supporting one side or the other if they didn't agree with them. You can think of it kind of like a much more violent version of almost like the United States right now. The way that people aren't just ending friendships because you believe one thing or the other, but going out and attacking each other, harming each other, not even harming people you know, but for example, one thing that I read was certain groups of people, such as, say, on the right side, you have priests, you have business owners, you have politicians, you have even just people who are well off. Those types of people would be labeled as nationalists, and if they lived in a predominantly Republican supporting area, you could find those people dead kind of often. And then same thing goes for the other side. If you're a union member, if you're a school teacher, a professor, if you are I don't know what else you could say, but those types of things that are associated more with the left, if you happen to be one of those and you are in a more right-wing area, you could find yourself getting strung up, pogromed. And that was the environment that was in Spain at this time. I don't know if you've ever read For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. That is a book that takes place during the Spanish Civil War. The guy, Ernest Hemingway, he actually was there while it was going on. If you want to learn a little bit more about what it was like during then, I mean, that'd be an interesting book to read. He essentially writes about a character who is fighting with some Republican guerrillas against the nationalist forces. So, anyway, this is definitely a little bit of a touchy game because of that for some people, but it treats both sides with respect without necessarily being biased towards one or the other. Both sides can definitely win this game, so it's not necessarily like glorifying one side or the other, because honestly both sides committed a lot of crimes. And I know that the right side, not the right, I don't want to make it sound like the right side, or let me rephrase that. The right-wing side, Franco's forces, ended up winning, and he ruled Spain in a dictatorship for a very long time. And I understand that a lot of people came away from that being resentful towards Franco's government. So again, this is a conflict that is still on people's hearts and minds. So again, I do want to emphasize that treat this game with respect, treat this conflict with respect, and I think we'll all get along. So anyway, that's enough rambling. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have a great week, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.